who don't want to give earnest money until bank approval. That's not how it works. The bank doesn't own this property. They might have a lien interest in it, but the seller owns the property. If the seller accepts a contract, earnest money should be paid. We want the buyer to get some skin in the game, they like to say. We want a committed buyer. We also want to do an inspection. Most buyers don't want to do it. They'll do an inspection after their short sale approval. Why sit around for 90 days to find out you don't want the property because the tile in the bathroom is broken? If you're a committed buyer, you're stealing this property below market value, spend $300 on an inspection, do an appraisal. Let's go. We're going to get it closed, so we want you on the buy side to get your stuff in order too. If you can provide me photos of the property, because it's in dilapidated condition, hit 10, pull the trick ones, where he had a map of all the sexual predators in the area to show the bank nobody wants this property. Look at all these red dots. You know these websites where you put in your address and the red dots pop up. That's how he got his deal closed. Something to think about. We're showing the lender a doghouse. Associations, I got the old skull and crossbones up there. They can be the killers of short sales. Here's why. They can lien the property. They can start racking up attorney's fees. You know, the whole thing about, oh, the buyer might have to pay 6 months of back when they buy distressed property. That's nothing. Buyers will throw that money at the property. The attorney's fees rack up, and they can be 2 or 3 or 4 times that 6 months of back assessments. The associations can kick your owner out of the property and put a tenant in. When that happens, a lot of these listing agents aren't even allowed to show the property. So if the buy pool of buyers is this big and you're not allowed to show the property, you got to find a buyer who will buy it sight unseen. It just got that big. Problem number 3 with associations: after the closing, the buyer doesn't get the property. Buyer gets it 30 days later, while some tenant is doing who knows what with a rental property. It's like a rental car. We drive them a little bit harder than we do our own cars. We treat that house not quite as nice as we would our own house. So now you have to find a buyer who has to buy the property sight unseen and won't get it for a month while somebody lives there. Now your buy pool is shrunk to about 3 guys. And you got to hunt them down and find them. Good luck with that. Pay the association dues. If your client says, listen, I either eat tonight or I pay the association dues, you buy them dinner. Got to keep up on the association dues. When you're sitting at the kitchen table with your seller and the seller says, to hell with it, I'll mail in my keys to the lender, I'll let it go into foreclosure. You got to remember, they're not in the right state of mind. Some sellers aren't even opening their mail. They're very upset. The difference between a foreclosure and a short sale is the difference between an apple and an orange. It's a much softer blow, and that's what we tell our sellers. It's a softer landing. When you do a foreclosure, your credit score gets just banged to hell. When your credit history will show a foreclosure. When you do a short sale, your credit history will have some kind of indication like debt settled for less than full. That's explainable. You worked out with a creditor and you settled the debt for less than was fully owed. That's explainable. A foreclosure is not. There's only one way to explain a foreclosure. You let it go. You got foreclosed. And it really dings your credit score. It really dings your credit history. It could affect future employment. We had a client who worked at O'Hare Airport. He had security clearance. If he got foreclosed, he loses security clearance. No issue on a short sale of anything like that with security clearances. And it's not about the numbers anymore. Just like I was telling you before, it doesn't matter if the place is upside down 100 grand. I closed a 3-flat in Chicago for $3,500. The bank just wanted it off the books. It was a toxic asset. They just wanted it gone. It's about market value now. If in this neighborhood, this condo is at this market value, that's the price you're trying to get. You're trying to get the best price at market value. But if that means that your client is upside down 100 grand or more, I don't care. It's not relevant anymore. It used to be relevant. Now it's not. Now what's relevant is market value. Your client's future prospects. On a foreclosure, try to buy a new house next year when things turn around and pick up. Try to buy a house in 5 years when they got a great job and they're making a lot of money. On a short sale, they can do that. On a foreclosure, they're not going to be able to do that. And no matter how bad things are at this time, you got to tell your client, well, look back 36 months. Were you in the same situation financially and family-wise and personally than you are today? And guess what? You're not going to be 36 months from now. So the short sale is a softer landing than a foreclosure. That's what we try to talk about. We try to make it where every one of our short sale sellers walks away from the closing don't owe any money. No deficiency, no judgment. That's our goal. We cannot do it every time. Sometimes we have clients that have high net worth, and they still make a lot of money, but they have a hardship, so the short sale get approved. Every once in a while, a lender will ask for a small seller contribution. If the client is walking away from $100,000 worth of debt, and the bank says, we want them to bring a $2,500 cashier's check to the closing as a seller contribution, it's Christmas Eve, and that's the best gift they ever got. Sometimes they don't know it. Sometimes they'll look me in the eye and they say, no way. Now, I'm not going to give a $2,500 contribution, so we have to show them the big picture. A $2,500 contribution to walk away from 6 figures worth of debt, that is called a gift. The Debt Forgiveness Act. If I give you $50 and you don't pay me back, I can 1099 you. You could be liable for taxes on that $50, just like your client could be liable if the bank lets them walk away from $100,000. Except right now, it's probably not going to be permanent. We already know that it expires at the end of next year, but right now the help is out there, the Debt Forgiveness Act. Your client with a good accountant can make that tax liability disappear. And there's some rules, there's some regulations, it had to be owner occupied, stuff like that, but a good accountant can make that tax liability go away. Is that help going to be there in 2013, 2014? Is HAFA going to be there? Are all these programs going to be there? I don't know, but I do know the help is there right now. So when we're sitting at a kitchen table with our seller, we're going to stress to them, these programs exist. The help is there now, the Debt Forgiveness Act, HAFA, it's time to show them the big picture. So how much does my office charge? We charge your client up front $0. A lot of attorneys take money up front. Some guys $500, $600, and $700 up front. That's because if they can't get a short sale closed, they need to be compensated. I charge the client $0 up front because I can get the short sale closed. I'll ask the short sale lender to compensate me. I charge them nothing when the deal closes. I'll never take any money from your client. I'll ask the short sale lender to compensate me, and knowing how much work is involved in a short sale, knowing there's 40 hours worth of phone work to get one closed, and I'm dealing with a buyer and a buyer's attorney, they're usually willing to compensate me. We maintain your 6%. I've already told you how. It's only when my fees are zeroed out will I say, listen, we're zeroed out, we're $500 short, something has to get figured out, the seller might have to bring in a few bucks. The realtors at that time may be asked to contribute a small amount of money. It happens once in a while. My goal is to maintain your 6%, and I only ask for money after I'm zeroed out. On a regular sale, they will come back. You might not have them now, but they'll come back. If you're lucky enough to have a regular sale now, my office will represent any seller in a regular residential real estate closing for $200. We'll represent any buyer in a regular residential real estate closing for $350. That's, if you walked in off the street, that's not a rate. So you have to say, Tom, you remember back in June, you bored me at the pizza luncheon. And then you'll get the $200, $350 rate. For any of our realtors, for any of you guys, as long as it's not a RESPA violation, I'll do all your closings on your personal deals for free. If it's a RESPA violation and I'm advised I have to charge, we'll put on whatever they require me to put on, $20 or $10, whatever they require. But my office is here to build a long-term relationship with you. We don't want your next deal, we want your next 500 deals. We want to work with you long-term in the future. And one of the perks we give our realtors is on their own personal buys and sells, we do it on the house. All the same level of service, an attorney sitting at the closing, none of that changes. So what's the point? What's the point of my presentation? My point is, and going back to the beginning of what I talked about, my point is that I want you to treat a short sale after you get my package filled out like a regular deal. I want you to get the best price you can, have the seller fill out the short sale package, hand it over to me, and go get another one. I've had realtors tell me that my firm's increased their revenues 2 and 3 times because they're not spending 40 hours on the phone, and they're not dealing with attorneys that use third-party negotiation companies in the state of Florida to try to get deals closed. They're getting deals, they're handing them over to my firm, I'm getting them closed, and they're getting more deals. That's what I want you guys to be able to do. Really shortly, I talked about HAFA. HAFA is a program that could get people coming into your office, and HAFA gets a bad rap. If you polled 10 realtors, or maybe even 10 realtors in this room, they'd say HAFA's a nightmare. HAFA doesn't have to be a nightmare. HAFA is extremely, extremely confusing if you don't have someone in the office that just concentrates on HAFA. Why is it confusing? Because it's a voluntary program by the